We're kicking off a new series today called The Way We Grow. Now, what do you think about when you hear the idea of having a church series? I remember when I was relatively new to faith, I would say to myself, oh, great, it's going to be 6 weeks of being told to try harder, to do better, to pray more, to give more, to sin less. But that's not what this is about, because the way Jesus grows people doesn't start with more hustle. It starts with rest. Think about your life for just a second. You answer emails and text messages until midnight. Doom scroll until your eyes burn. Pack your calendars so full that even rest feels like just another task on your already too full of an agenda. We're so busy that we can't even begin to think about taking a vacation. And even if you manage to take a vacation, you're still dealing with work-related issues. But why? Because of the demand to be connected all the time. And we wonder why we're so exhausted. But that's the water that we swim in. We live in a culture that celebrates the grind and the hustle. You can sleep when you're dead is a phrase that we hear every once in a while. But Jesus looks at us all. He sees people who are stressed out, burned out, distracted. And he says, come to me, I will give you rest. Not clean up your life first, not prove that you're worthy. Jesus says, come to me as you are. More specifically, Jesus says in Matthew 11, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Now let that just soak in for a minute. Because I think if we're being really honest, most of us are tired. And not just tired in our minds and in our bodies, but also in our souls. And it's the kind of tired that vacation just doesn't fix. And the people in Jesus' time knew this kind of exhaustion all too well. But their religion wasn't any help. In fact, it had become just one more burden in a whole string of burdens. It was rules stacked upon rules. If you made a mistake, you were out. You were considered both unworthy and uninvited. And if we fast forward 2,000 years, it's not the Pharisees piling it on. It's our culture. It's our grind culture. Hustle more, earn more, post your highlight reel, crush your goals. And if you can't keep up, the message is the same. You're not enough. But we don't live under the Pharisees' rule anymore. But the pressure is the same. You're only valuable if you're productive, right? That's what we're told. You're only lovable if you're successful. And rest is for the weak. But Jesus flips that script. He says, if you're tired, if you're burdened, if you feel like you're never enough, come to me. I've got you. Spiritual growth doesn't start with doing more. It starts with letting go. It starts with presence, not performance. Now, there's a story in the New Testament that perfectly expresses this reality. It's a story about two sisters named Mary and Martha. On one occasion, Jesus had come to their home for a meal, and Martha's running around. She's making sure everything looks good, right? She wants to make sure that the bread is all baked and not just done, but she wants it to be perfect. She wants to make sure all the drinks are ready. She is sweating and she's just doing everything she can to keep it together. But meanwhile, there's Mary, her sister, and she's just sitting there, cross-legged on the floor, hanging on every word that's coming out of Jesus' mouth. And in Luke 10, verse 40, Martha snaps. She says, Jesus, don't you care that my sister has left me with all the work? Tell her to help. Then Jesus gently says in the next verse, Dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. Translation: Martha was busy doing for Jesus, but Mary just wanted to be with Jesus. Personalize this just a little bit. If Jesus walked into your home tonight, what would you do? Would you scramble, trying to make sure the house looked perfect? Would you get out all your best dinnerware? Would you make your favorite meal, something that you knew you could pull off just perfectly? Or would you order something quick from DoorDash and just sit down? Would you let the dishes wait until tomorrow and just spend time with Jesus? Be honest with yourself for just a minute. When you hear that word, rest, how does that make you feel? What do you imagine? Most of us, when we hear that idea of rest, we picture maybe an evening at home binging on Netflix or Hulu or one of the other 1,000 streaming services that are out there. Or maybe rest for you means sleeping till noon, or maybe reading a book. But biblical rest isn't checking out. Now, that's what I do. At the end of the night, I go home and I need about 2 hours to just kind of check out. But that's not rest. Biblical rest isn't checking out. It's trusting. It's saying, God, I know you're still working even when I stop. Jesus, think about his life. Jesus took naps in the middle of storms. He stopped in the middle of all kinds of chaos just to pray. He walked everywhere instead of rushing around. He wasn't lazy, he was present. And that's the difference between escapism and rest. Escapism, watching TV, trying to forget everything about your life that has you so stressed out, that just numbs you. You binge, you scroll, you zone out. But rest, real rest, renews you. It restores your soul. It reconnects you with God, with yourself, and even with other people. But what does it mean to make space to rest? At Kindred, one of our core values is rest over rush. And one of the ways we measure our growth is by being able to truthfully say that I make space for rest in my life. Now, that might look different for different people. It might look like turning off the notifications on your phone, or just turning your phone off for an hour so that you can breathe. It might mean setting aside a day each week as Sabbath and not cramming in chores, and just allow yourself to be renewed. It might mean giving yourself permission to stop proving yourself. Or it might just mean taking 5 minutes to sit with God. No agenda, no performance, just sitting with God. And this is something that we all need to do regardless of where we are on our spiritual journey. There's an amazing woman. Her name is Corrie Tenenbaum. Now, you may not know her name, or maybe you do, but her struggle is one that you and I know well. She was so busy doing things that were good things, but she lost touch with God in the process. Let me tell you a little bit about her story, just in case you're not familiar. She and her family famously hid Jews during World War II. But when they were caught, her family, adults and children, were arrested, and they were all sent to a concentration camp where most of them died. But Corey survived, and she spent the rest of her life preaching forgiveness. Think about that for just a moment. Your entire family is forced out of their home because you're trying to do the right thing, taken to a concentration camp where you live in squalor, you're starving, you see everyone you care about slowly die, and then she preaches the rest of her life about forgiveness. Corrie ten Boom was strong. She was brave and relentless. But even she confessed to hitting the occasional spiritual wall. She once wrote in a journal, said, "I am losing touch with the God I am preaching about." So, what did she do? She decided to make a shift. She decided that no schedule, no ministry, no meeting would ever come before her time with Jesus. During a conference years later, she said, "Don't just pray when you feel like it. Make an appointment with God every day and keep it." That's where her courage came from. It wasn't from her hustle. It wasn't from her busyness. But it's from her hidden hours with God. Rest is where growth begins. You don't make a plant grow by yanking off all of its leaves. You give it space. You give it sun, soil that's healthy, water, and then it'll grow on its own. And your soul works the same way. When you rest in Jesus, you create space for God to actually grow you. Our mission at Kindred is simple: to help weary and wandering people find rest, reconnection, and renewal through the love and way of Jesus. That starts here with rest, because without rest, you'll never reconnect. Without rest, renewal will always feel just out of reach. So how can you make space for rest? That can mean a lot of things for different people. It could mean turning off your phone for a little bit every once in a while. It can mean taking a walk with no podcast, no music, no distractions, just silence. Give yourself permission to stop performing. Jesus is offering you something the world never will. He's not offering hustle, not pressure, not more weight, but simply rest. And it's not rest for your schedule, it's rest for your soul. Offering forgiveness from your past, peace for your present, hope for your future. Jesus isn't just offering you a lighter calendar. He's offering you life itself. Real rest for your soul. And maybe today, that's what you need more than anything else. So here's the invitation. This week, stop performing and start resting in Jesus. Are you willing to slow down enough to hear Jesus say, "Come to me, and I will give you rest"? Are you willing to believe that your worth isn't earned by what you do, but comes straight from God's heart? The way we grow begins not with doing more, but resting in God's love. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Goodbye.